Hello everyone. So welcome back to Fun with Mons. So today, I wanted to talk about the dark side teaching English online or teaching online in general, right? But it's not all peaches, and roses on the other side. But in all honesty, I still love it more than anything else, right? So yeah, if you're considering teaching English as a second language online, these are some of the things that you can consider as to why I say they might be the dark side. But it's not really like dark side, like threatening. But for some people, it can be a huge problem. For others, it's not so much of a problem. All right, so if that's something that sounds like you want to learn more about, then stick around. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, everything. All right, and don't forget to come say hi on Instagram. I created a new account, so it's really low. So come on by, follow, and let's chat. All right, so the first part of the dark side is, of course, the salary. Not necessarily in terms of the amount that you make, but the problem is that you don't have a steady income, right? It's very rare that you're going to have a steady income if you're teaching, because usually most companies are based off the hours that you do, right? Hours that you do, presence, absences. There's some companies where you actually lose money if you are absent from a class, depending on the time and things like that. So it changes, it fluctuates each month. It also depends on maybe like lesson availabilities, things like that. So normally, this is why I say when you're looking for a company to work with, look for one where you know that lessons are usually available in, like a high demand. Don't go for one where you end up with like 3 lessons for the whole week. And that's why, like, in starting out, if you go with like the, what do you call them, the marketplace companies, you won't be making like right away, right? That can take a little time for you to build your reputation, to get clients and stuff like that. So it takes a lot, maybe longer, right? So that's one thing to consider. The next thing, the next, I'd say, dark side would be sometimes the negativity, right? And when I say the negativity, I should say negative comments, right? Because sometimes like you'll genuinely do like a really good job at something and you get a negative review or a negative comment and you did nothing wrong, right? For me personally, I haven't had a lot of negative comments, but the negative comments, as I said, may have nothing to do with your teacher. It could be related to, that thing. I don't know if I could say it on YouTube, so I won't say it, but like the color of my skin. So you might get like a negative comment based on that. That has happened to me actually, it's funny, that happened to me when I just started teaching, but I never got it again. But that's just from people who are not fans of this color skin. So you just have to be mindful that people will say what they want to say, but just don't take it personal. That's it, right? You might get negative feedback sometimes. Maybe you have like a class with 10 people and you have to allot all of the 10 people time to talk. And then at the end, you could give everyone the same amount of time to talk. And at the end, someone might still say, oh, they didn't get enough time to talk and XYZ. But you did give them the amount that everyone got, which is as fair as you can be, in my opinion, right? But people will be people. So yeah, that's one of the dark sides, I think. But you really don't have any control over these things, okay? All right, so that kind of ties into what number 3 would have been. It has to do with the color of your skin and your accent. Maybe I could use discrimination instead of the other word. But discrimination does happen in the industry a lot. Like, I want to advocate a lot for like Black people who teach English as a second language, because personally I would have seen how some companies react because of your complexion. I've had companies where I got through via, they saw my application, they did this, they did that, and then when they got like the picture and they say, oh, she's this, then you just don't hear from them again. Like, they just disappear. You've had students who might have an issue with that. As I said, that doesn't happen a lot though, thankfully, knock on wood. But yeah, so you do have situations where you will face discrimination, especially also you have to be mindful of where you're from. A lot of companies may not hire you based on where you're from, or the amount of money that you get paid changes based on where you're from. That one I wouldn't necessarily say it's discrimination, but like, for me, it's ridiculous when there's a company that's going to pay you like $1 for an hour. That makes no sense, right? But it happens. Yeah. So that's why I always say you have to really, really like research, know what you're looking for, what you want from a company, and then you go looking. Because some companies, honestly, I don't think they even think. They just want people to teach at any rate, at any, amount that they feel like. But no, it's still work, it still takes time, it still takes effort. Right? But that's a big one, I think, because I would have had experience applying to so many companies in the past, and just being Jamaican, my Jamaican accent, there isn't even the option to apply. So when you see countries, like Jamaica is not there, it doesn't exist, right? So you can't even apply. It's like that, right? When in truth and in fact, like going through lessons, people will tell me all the time, oh, your accent is so clear, it's not strong, so it's neutral, so they understand me perfectly well. But because a lot of countries consider us as non-natives, then most people don't necessarily want to hire us, right? But you do have companies that hire native and non-native speakers, but again, they'll adjust the prices for native versus non-native. In terms of like, if you can speak like other languages, then you have the chance of making more, which I think is a good thing. That's not discrimination. I think that's a good thing, right? So that's not a dark thing. That's a good thing. But yeah, so that's one of the other things to consider, right? The next dark side is the work hours, right? It really can be tricky where you're from, because let's say I'm in Jamaica or I'm in the States and my student is in Japan, or they're in China, or they're in Germany, then you know that the hours are very different. Yeah. So sometimes, before I had my daughter, I had no sleep cycle. That's the reality of it. Like, I would do lessons anytime once they were available. So sometimes I'd get up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. just to do a lesson. And my sleeping pattern was really ruined. I didn't really value sleep at that point in time because I was younger, no responsibilities, just kind of home. So I would just get up at any time. So I'd maybe go to sleep at 9 and get up back at like 11 for a lesson. Then I go back to sleep, get up again at 2 a.m. So that can be tricky. But again, if you look for a company, you know what you're looking for, you could find one that has classes within your hours, right? But for the most part, if you're going to teach people from, like, as I said, like China or, Asian countries, then just be prepared for the huge hour differences, right? With countries like European countries, it's not so bad, but with the Asian countries, it's like a whole different timestamp, right? So that's another thing to consider. The next dark side, guys, I can talk about this one forever, is tech issues. Technology is technology, you have no control over it, right? That could be a big problem. Could be a small problem too, because to be honest, the companies do understand that tech problems happen, right? But you want to make sure that if you are going to teach online, try to have as stable connection as possible. So instead of using like Wi-Fi, it's better to get like the Ethernet cord and connect it directly for the speed and all of that. But, and this I can talk about like with my experience, especially teaching with the internet companies in Jamaica. It was ridiculous. Like I had one where I almost lost my job because of the company, because every second there was some problems with the internet. I would lose my internet for, there are only 2 providers in Jamaica, only 2. So it's like the other one is good, but they weren't installing like internet where I lived at the time. So I could only use the other, and that one almost cost me my job. But luckily the other one opened up around the time, and that kind of fixed it, because every second I would be like in a lesson and then it just goes, it just disconnects, or I can't get into my lessons, or I can't type up my reports. Sometimes I would have to like go to my friend's house to try and type my reports before the 24-hour time frame because of internet issues, or I would go by my dad's. Like I had to figure it out. So tech issues, depending on where you're from, once you're going to teach English online, just make sure that your connection is good and stable, all right? And most companies do a tech check before they hire you, all right? So they do a tech check just to make sure that your headset, all of those things work. That's another thing. You could be in a lesson and the headset decides that that's it, I'm done for today. So it's good to have a backup headset, right? Just in case that does happen. But that's another thing. A headset might go, your computer might stop working, your laptop might stop working. It's tech, right? But as I said, the good thing is that these companies can be understanding, but at the end of the day, if it happens too often, then you know that's not good. All right. I kind of tied this one into when I was talking about the work hours, which is just the time zone differences, all right? So you have to be aware of the time zone differences. And when I say time zone differences, also you have to remember when there is that daylight saving time switch, right? Because it switches things sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, but for the most part it does. It maybe sets your classes back an hour or forward an hour. So it's good to note, right? The next one, guys, is the environment, your work from home environment. Now, like this happened to me exactly today as I'm recording this. I was doing a lesson and my 5-year-old was watching TV, and she decided to tell someone on the TV that they were rude, and she shouted out so loud. She did it about 2 times. So you have to be mindful of your work from home environment. I'm going to tie this into the next one, which is also like isolation. But your work from home environment, you want to make sure that you have a workspace for teaching. You want to have like a clear background, or you could decorate your background with teacher stuff, right? But you want to have a clear background, good lighting, a quiet environment, right? But again, sometimes that's hard to control depending on who you live with, what happens around you. For example, I remember I had a lesson a few weeks ago and I had to cancel it like really last minute with a person because they decided to cut the yard. So there was the loud sound of the lawnmower and all of that, so I had to cancel, right? So you have to, but now I know what day they do that, so I don't have to cancel again. I just don't book any classes for that day because I know that's the day when all the noise happens, all right? And I tied this into isolation because teaching online, it's dark as it relates to that, because for me, I can talk about for me personally in terms of isolation. I got to a point where I was just comfortable being at home, right? Just teaching from home. I would go out every now and then with my friends, but being at home, I was comfortable. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. And it kind of drained me socially because I worked hours. So I would be teaching for hours, talking for hours. So when I'm finished, I'm just done talking. I don't want to talk anymore. So you have to figure out like a great way to get work-life balance. That I kind of have finally started to figure out, because as you guys know, I'm just doing like part-time now. But work-life balance, you gotta try and find that. All right. So hopefully this helps you. You can consider these things as you look for your opportunity to teach English online. And I hope these things don't deter you from doing it, because it's still a great job. It's a great opportunity. You just have to look for a company that meets your requirements and then just go for it. All right. So don't forget, guys, to subscribe. And I hope you enjoyed it. And follow me for more. And go say hi on Instagram. All right, guys. Bye.